You are listening to 3-Point Lead presented by Loeb's Leads. I am Max Loeb, bringing you another episode talking about the NFL awards. Today is June 27th, 2024. I reserve the right to change any of these, but I'm going to give you my pick, a sleeper I like outside of the top 10 projections right now, as well as somebody I think is a little bit overvalued as it relates to each of these awards. I'm talking MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, whatever it may be. We're going to go through all of them, talk about all of them. But before we do, I want to give a brief shout out to our sponsor, Better Picks, my favorite way to enjoy fantasy sports, where you can pick more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 1,000 times your entry. Right now, Better's offering a first deposit match of up to $250 if you go to my socials and join with code LEADS. That's LEADS, L-E-A-D-S, all caps on Better Picks. Without further ado, let's get into this episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you give me your 2 cents on the socials, in the comments below, whatever it may be, because these debates, these awards, especially over the summer, cause a lot of debate. I want to hear what you guys say. Let's talk about them. All right, so we're going to be going through each NFL award, and I'm going to do 3 things for each award. My official pick, now it is June. Technically, it's still the end of June, so I have the reserved right to change any of these. It's still a little early. Off-season things still need to happen. I will not give my official picks till probably mid-August, but my pick right now, somebody I think is overvalued in that category for that award, as well as a deep sleeper. We're going to start with MVP. I got all the projections next to me. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is first. Going down the top 5, though. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, number 2, CJ Stroud, number 3, Joe Burrow, number 3 also. There's same chances. And then Lamar Jackson at number 5. Patrick Mahomes as the favorite really does make sense, right? I mean, he's had 2 back-to-back unbelievable years, back-to-back Super Bowls. He's the best player in the NFL. But I am actually going to go out on a limb and say CJ Stroud as my pick. I think in an offense that's going to score 27, 28, 29 a game on a team that's going to win a lot of games, probably going to win their division, going to make a lot of noise. Also, just who he is as a person, I think does matter. When you look at the MVP award, what do all MVPs have in common? They take the league by storm. And obviously, Patrick Mahomes can do that. Josh Allen can do that. But CJ Stroud is the type of player and type of person that we saw last year took the league by storm just in his first year, just the way he played, the way he acted. Outside of the pure statistics, what we see on the field, the numbers, he will take the league by storm again to a new extent this year. He's going to put up ridiculous numbers. I think he's going to have an awesome year this year. Looking at people who are overvalued in this category, it's tough because MVP is a quarterback's award. We all know it. So we got to find the quarterbacks who are maybe on teams that don't have the best chance of, winning their division. I find it really hard to believe a team that doesn't win their division has an MVP on it, at least on the national scale. It's really hard to do. For that purpose alone, I think I'm going to go with Jordan Love as somebody who's a little bit overvalued, especially because I know we look at the NFC North as a division that's stacked, as a division that has a ton of talent in it. But I don't know. Like, I look at Jordan Love and the Packers. I absolutely could see them winning the division. I still think the Lions are the best team in the NFC. I think they're truly the team to beat in the NFC. But what if the Packers finish third in the division? I don't think it's a crazy, far-fetched thought that the Packers could finish third in the NFC North. So if that happens, maybe Jordan Love has a ridiculous year. But if he does have a ridiculous year, even the Packers finish second in the NFC North, he's not going to win MVP. Like, that's not going to happen. There's no way that happens if you're a quarterback on a team that doesn't win your division. Like, I look at down the list, I won't say Jared Goff is my sleeper right now, but a guy like Jared Goff, who's outside of the top 10 for quarterbacks in this category, like, I would almost rather ride that for the year than somebody like Jordan Love, somebody like Dak Prescott, because I don't think the Cowboys are going to win the division. Matthew Stafford, maybe. Like, I find it hard for non-division winning quarterbacks to win MVP. Maybe that's just me, but we'll move to my sleeper in this category. It's tough. Like, you scroll down the list of all of these players, and then after guys like Goff, Kirk Cousins, Anthony Richardson, Kyler, you start to get into the non-quarterbacks like McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill. I'm not going to go and say McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill is an MVP sleeper because we know how valuable they are to their team. But if you're looking at the odds, that yes, they are technically a sleeper. But I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins, who, if I scroll down the list here, would be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16th. in the MVP race right now. I think that's a really, really solid pick because you look at Kirk Cousins as a guy who's probably going to lead his team to a division win, probably going to lead an offense to 24, 25, 26 points per game against not great teams. That's the reality of the Falcons' schedule and the reality of the NFC South. They're not great teams over there. You look at a guy who's probably going to put up a lot of really good numbers, an offensive line that's going to keep him upright, allow him to make the plays. He's got some good playmakers on the outside. They're going to score a lot of points. If he starts throwing touchdowns in the red zone, like, he's going to put up some really good numbers. It's going to make almost an undeniable case for Kirk Cousins to at least be in the MVP conversation because of how good their offense is and really how much better the Falcons are than everybody else in their division. The Falcons could finish call me crazy. I think the Falcons could finish as the 4 seed. If they dominate that division, win a lot of games and high-scoring games, Kirk Cousins can win the MVP. I think that's my official sleeper for that pick. So the MVP award, my pick, C.J. Stroud, somebody I think is a little overvalued, Jordan Love, and then my sleeper, Kirk Cousins. We can go to where's Offensive Player of the Year. So going down the list, reading the top 10, we'll go Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, actually. CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson, all the same. So they're all tied 3. Down Saquon Barkley, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Breece Hall actually have the same. So that's 7 and 8. Bijan Robinson and Puka Nacua 9, 10. And then it drops off to A.J. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Garrett Wilson. So I don't know. I think this is really tough because last year you watch the 49ers play with Christian McCaffrey and you understand how good he is, how valuable he is. It's really hard to repeat in any award, especially Offensive Player of the Year. So I'm not gonna say Christian McCaffrey. However, I look at the effect that McCaffrey had going from a bad situation to a good situation to functional offense. I think we're going to see the same with Saquon again. Like, I think Saquon Barkley is almost bound for an enormous, enormous year. The crazy thing is, though, and I know there is substance to this. Like, I think anybody who watches football will understand that there is some substance to this. Numbers matter in the MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, whatever, award races. They matter. What happens if Saquon Barkley puts up more rushing yards than Christian McCaffrey, more receiving yards than Christian McCaffrey, but his touchdowns pale in comparison because of the tush push? Like, what? Seriously, what happens? Like, do you have a legitimate argument against Saquon Barkley because he's not scoring from, let's say, inside the 3, inside the 2? I don't think it's legitimate, but I think there would be people that argue that, and they look at the raw number and say, oh, Saquon only has 6 rushing touchdowns on the year. Christian McCaffrey has 18, which could very, very well happen. Like, that's a very real, logical possibility that could happen. Is that a functional, logical argument? No. Could it happen? Yes. The argument itself could happen. I'm going to go with Saquon as my Offensive Player of the Year pick. I think just going from the situation he had in New York, where if you watched last year, like, it was pretty clear to see that it was the healthiest he's looked in a while. I think he's going to have a big, big year in Philadelphia. Looking now, though, at overvalued guys, it's tough because all these players are so valuable. Gosh, that's really, really tough. If we're going to keep it inside the top 10 for overvalued guys, gosh, that's tough. I'm going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown. If we're just keeping it in the top 10, I don't think any of those top 10 guys are truly overvalued. But if I had to pick one within the top 10, like, I'm Amon-Ra St. Brown for perspective, for reference here, regarded similarly to Breece Hall in the Offensive Player of the Year. See, but then you look at that, and I'm like, can Breece Hall really produce like we think he can on a consistent basis? Gosh, this is so tough. I am going to go Amon-Ra just because I think there's so many weapons in that offense. I think, he obviously had an unbelievable year getting in the end zone last year. If that production is down a little bit, it's going to be hard to argue, but the yardage will always be there. So if we're keeping it in the top 10, guys that I'm least confident in, probably Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I do have a couple sleepers here. Scrolling down the list, Derrick Henry would be 14th in Offensive Player of the Year. I think he could have 1,600, 1,700 yards and 20 touchdowns. Like, I think that's a very real possibility in the Baltimore offense. But scrolling down even further, I do think there are a couple deeper sleepers. A guy for me who it really wouldn't surprise me if he had a crazy statistical year is Devontae Adams. I think nobody really talks about Devontae Adams, but last year was still very, very productive. Still, you watch film on him, very much dominated everybody across from him on a consistent basis. You scroll down the list, he's outside, I believe, the top 25 with Offensive Player of the Year players. So, look, all it's going to take is Aiden O'Connell throwing him the football, which he will. Gardner Minshew's not afraid to chuck that thing either if he's playing, to get him the production that he needs, that he deserves. Obviously, the Raider identity is going to shift away a little bit, I think, from a passing attack, but you're going to roll 12 personnel out there. You're going to have him and Jacoby Myers on the field, get the matchups you like, get the coverages that you like. I think Devontae Adams could have an enormous, enormous year in Las Vegas, and I think nobody really talks about him because Justin Jefferson has become so good. Tyreek Hill, I think, is the best receiver in the NFL, has just become so good. Like this other tier of receivers, or we think at least this other tier of receivers exists with those guys. We kind of forget how good Devontae Adams is. I think he's still the third best receiver in the NFL. I know CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase are very much up there too, but I still think he's the third best receiver in the NFL. He's going to get his chances. He's going to make the most of his chances. I think he's a little bit disrespected in the sense that he's outside the top 25 behind guys like Travis Etienne, Mike Evans, Debo. Let's see who else is above him. Diggs, I get that. Devon Achane, I love Devon Achane, but we really don't know what that's going to look like. Another sleeper I'm looking at now, Kyren Williams. I think Kyren Williams could score 20-plus touchdowns this year, and if he is healthy, he was efficient last year. He had a lot of rushing yards when he was playing. It's a guy that could put up some pretty crazy statistical numbers to legitimately make an unbreakable case for Offensive Player of the Year, and that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So, recapping Offensive Player of the Year, my pick is still Saquon Barkley, somebody I think in the top 10 who's overvalued, Amon-Ra St. Brown a little bit, and then my sleepers, Kyren Williams and Devontae Adams. We will go to Defensive Player of the Year now. And this is tougher because we saw last year numbers don't matter as much in the Defensive Player of the Year race, and they obviously hold some substance, but when you looked at guys like TJ Watt, let's see, probably, I'm trying to think statistically last year, it was TJ Watt, and it was it Danielle Hunter who was second? Somebody who was second. Like they outperformed Myles Garrett in terms of sacks, which is, it's good. Like I said in the video I posted yesterday with the Trey Hendrickson stuff, the sacks are one of the most overblown stats in the NFL, and I will be one of the first people to always say that. So you got to take everything with a grain of salt here. Rolling down the top 10 for Defensive Player of the Year, it's going to be a lot of edge rushers. Micah Parsons, 1, Myles Garrett, 2, TJ Watt, 3, Nick Bosa, Max Crosby, pretty significant drop-off. Aiden Hutchinson, Chris Jones, Josh Allen. Josh Allen actually are the same, so that's tied. Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter, and Rashawn Gary. Kyle Hamilton off the top 10 is actually the first DB on the list, which is interesting. But my pick, and I hate to do that because I know a lot of Browns fans are listening, but TJ Watt, I just think this is the year he gets it. Like, you look at his statistical production every single year, it's super consistent. He's one of the best players in the entire NFL. I almost just think he's due. Like that, as crazy as a rationale as that is, he's going to put up great numbers. We know this. He can help out in the run game and the pass game. We know what TJ Watt can do. Is he the best defensive player in the NFL? No, I don't think so. I don't think he's the best edge rusher in the NFL. But statistically, year after year after year, he keeps doing this, and he's not getting the recognition that he deserves. And I think slowly but surely people are realizing that. I don't think he should have won last year. I think it was Myles Garrett's award, but I think he's due. I think he puts up another 17, 18 sack year, assuming he stays healthy, and I think he takes it home. Micah Parsons being that high, obviously he's an unbelievable talent, but that throws me off a little bit. Like, as for guys who are overvalued, call me crazy. I'll say two things. One, I don't think Micah Parsons should be the favorite, and if he is, I don't think he should have a much better chance than a guy like Myles Garrett, TJ Watt. I will say that. It's kind of my overvalued. But Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter are on the same team and are both in the top 10. They're obviously two great edge rushers, right? I am going to stay away from that because I find it so hard to believe that two players who are on either side of each other, who are both so elite at what they do, can consistently produce and win the award. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. Like, you look at the other teams on this list, like the Cowboys, sure, DeMarcus Lawrence is on the other side, but Micah Parsons significantly better. Myles Garrett, same with Zadarius Smith. TJ Watt, same with Alex Highsmith. Nick Bosa's by himself. Max Crosby's by himself, at least in edge rusher terms. Aiden Hutchinson's by himself. Like, I don't think that's a reality for somebody to win that award. If you have somebody so good at what you do on the other side, it's hard to do, especially as an edge rusher. Scrolling down, looking at some sleepers. It's tough because I love Sauce Gardner. As you guys see my top 10 for my top 100 list, he will be in the top 10. Spoiler alert for anybody watching, listening. I'm sorry, he will be in the top 10. But I truly think he's one of the best defensive players in the NFL. Defensive Player of the Year is really never really a DB award. It's hard for it to be a DB award, especially for a corner, because that type of production, unless you're like Deron Bland, where you have five pick sixes or 6 picks, whatever it was, is really, really hard to do. But for a sleeper, I think Hassan Reddick, because he is just outside the top 10. I think you look at him as an elite pass rusher. He was my sleeper last year. Did not do great in Philadelphia, but I think now on a defensive line where a guy like Quinnen Williams is going to clog up the middle, you're going to have a couple other guys on the other side that can get after the quarterback as well. I think Hassan Reddick is going to get a lot of one-on-ones this year, to be honest with you, and I think there are very few tackles in the NFL that can stop that storm consistently on a one-on-one basis. So Defensive Player of the Year, my pick is TJ Watt. My overvalued players, I guess, Micah Parsons, and then the 2 Texans, Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, and then my sleeper, Hassan Reddick. Let's go to Offensive Rookie of the Year. And again, if you guys are watching on YouTube, watching on the socials, or listening on Spotify, make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. That way you don't miss any of the next episodes that will be coming out tomorrow as well as down the line next week. Offensive Rookie of the Year. 1 is Caleb Williams, then a very, very significant drop off to Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, J.J. McCarthy, Xavier Worthy, Bo Nix, Drake May, Bo Nix and Drake May are the same. So is Xavier Worthy. Keon Coleman, Rome Odunze. That is crazy to me that Bo Nix, Drake May, and Xavier Worthy are all the same. That's wild. My pick, Caleb Williams, I'm not going to think twice about that. I don't really need to discuss much about that. I mean, he is walking into an almost perfect situation in Chicago. So I think Caleb Williams wins the award. I'm very confident in that. My sleeper, though, and I've been saying this all offseason, is J.J. McCarthy. I'll talk about the overvalued at the end, but J.J. McCarthy, he comes in, he starts playing. I think he's probably going to have to start playing before week 4 or week 5 if he doesn't come in and start right away. I think he's going to come in and start right away, but we'll see. He is very smart. He can operate an offense like Kevin O'Connell's. He's throwing the ball to unbelievable playmakers, not just Justin Jefferson, too. I talked about this, I think, yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. It's TJ Hawkinson. It's Jordan Addison. It's Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler, 2 of the better receiving backs in the NFL. J.J. McCarthy has another almost perfect situation. I know Caleb Williams literally does have a perfect situation outside of a mediocre offensive line, but J.J. McCarthy legitimately has a perfect situation. So I think he could put up some pretty crazy numbers and honestly give Caleb Williams a run for his money, especially because I do think the Vikings could make some noise. Second half of the year, that defense was one of the best in the NFL. They're slowly improving under Brian Flores. This offseason, I mean, they got Jonathan Grenard Blake Cashman from Houston. I keep forgetting Blake Cashman. Blake Cashman from Houston. They lost Danielle Hunter, but they upgraded over there. So team that could make a lot of noise, win 7-8 games. God forbid the Vikings win more games than the Bears. I think J.J. McCarthy will win Offensive Rookie of the Year if that's the case. I think he's going to win the award. Guy who's overvalued. I mean, Bo Nix. I don't see him putting up any type of crazy numbers. I don't see the Broncos winning any probably more than 8 games. I don't think that's going to happen. I think him being in the same category as a guy like Drake May is wild. Xavier Worthy is a little overvalued to me too, just because that Chiefs offense is so game plan dependent. And he's the 3rd receiver now. That's the reality because of Rashee Rice and Marquise Brown. Xavier Worthy, it's awesome. The fit, we watched it on draft night and we're like, oh no, the Chiefs are going to be so good again. And yeah, they're obviously going to be good, but I'm not thinking Xavier Worthy is a 1,300, 1,400 yard receiver unless somebody in the Chiefs gets hurt. That's the only way that happens. But yeah, so my pick, Caleb Williams, my overvalued Xavier Worthy, Bo Nix, and then my sleeper. And honestly, guys, I'm just going to make it 2 picks because I'm very confident in the sleeper is J.J. McCarthy. But Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy, and then overvalued Xavier Worthy and Bo Nix. We will finish with Defensive Rookie of the Year. We'll scroll down. This is a very interesting one. And for my guys who are very, very knowledgeable when it comes to this stuff, it's really, really hard for a defensive player outside of an edge rusher to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think it's easier for a defensive rookie who's not an edge rusher to win their award. As crazy as that sounds. You look at the top 10 guys here. Dallas Turner, linebacker edge. Laiatu Latu, linebacker edge. They're the top two. They're both tied. Jared Verse, obviously, linebacker edge. But then you got Quinyon Mitchell, Terrion Arnold. You got Byron Murphy, Chop Robinson, Cooper DeJean, Edgerrin Cooper, Braden Fisk, Mike Sandstro. Like, there's a lot. There's multiple DBs on this list. Look, I think Laiatu Latu is going to be unbelievable if he can stay healthy, to be honest with you. So when it comes to sack production, when it comes to raw numbers that, create that undeniable case for an award winner, it's going to be Laiatu Latu. That's my pick. I love Dallas Turner. I think on the other side of Jonathan Grenard, it's going to be pretty special in Minnesota too. Another thing, like, I don't know, guys, this Vikings team, I think they're going to shock some people. Laiatu Latu is my pick, though. A guy who's overvalued, honestly, Braden Fisk. Like, it's going to be tough to replicate and fill the shoes of Aaron Donald. I think just a little bit overvalued. Braden Fisk, I mean, he's a good player, and he's going to help out Jared Verse a lot on the other side, or on the outside, excuse me. But Braden Fisk is, to me, just a bit overrated. I'm going to scroll down these Defensive Rookie of the Year players as well. But a sleeper that I do have, I think Chop Robinson. He's outside the top 5, not outside the top 10, but you look at Miami's defensive line, and obviously Jalen Phillips will be back eventually, but Chop Robinson is another pure pass rusher that you get into those third down situations. It's going to be interesting to see what the Dolphins can do on the early downs, because no Christian Wilkins. I think they're going to struggle a little bit more in early down situations and have less of those true pin your ear back and rush the passer situations. So I think the volume may be less for Chop Robinson, but to me, that's a guy that can get after the quarterback, create the undeniable case. I'm going to keep saying that pass rushers can do it a lot better than DBs. Chop Robinson will be my sleeper there. So my pick, Laiatu Latu, my overvalued Braden Fisk, and then my sleeper, Chop Robinson. Full recap really quick. If you missed any of it, we can go through MVP. So my pick, CJ Stroud, a guy who I think is a bit overvalued, Jordan Love. And then my sleeper for MVP, Kirk Cousins. We can move down. Offensive Player of the Year, my pick, Saquon Barkley. Overvalued, at least in the top 10, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think just a little bit. And then my sleepers there were Devontae Adams and Kyron Williams. Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt was my pick, a guy who was overvalued in terms of Defensive Player of the Year. Who do we say here? Overvalued. Micah Parsons a little bit, I think, in terms of comparatively to the top 5. And then both Texans, it's just so hard for either one to win an award where the other guy on the other side is so good. Like, how are you going to pick? Whatever. Sleeper there, Hassan Reddick. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Caleb Williams. Overvalued, Xavier Worthy, Bo Nix. And then sleeper, J.J. McCarthy. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Laiatu Latu. Overvalued, Braden Fisk. And then sleeper was Chop Robinson. I appreciate you guys watching and listening. Look out for the next episode coming tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit more about these awards, talk a little bit more about scheme fits, my favorite scheme fits. But if you guys are new to the YouTube, new to the Spotify, wherever you're watching this, make sure you're following so you don't miss the next episode. Give it a 5-star rating. Leave a like if you enjoyed it as well. I will see you guys next time. God bless.